Let's talk about Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is the newest entry in the famous Street Fighter series. Street Fighter is the biggest franchise in the fighting game community, easily having the biggest reach out of any fighting game franchise in the entire world. For the longest time in the FGC, it was believed that Street Fighter was the beating heart of the entire community. If Street Fighter was doing well, the community was flourishing. If Street Fighter was doing poorly, the scene was doing poorly. In the past few years, though, Street Fighter has had somewhat of a hard time reaching the mass appeal like it did back in the Street Fighter 2 days. While Street Fighter 4 saved fighting games by bringing the genre back to the spotlight and paving the way for future games on modern consoles, the launch of Street Fighter 5 was so bad that a large majority of fighting game players refused to play it. While the game eventually did become an enjoyable fighting game, the initial impression stuck with people, and even to this day, 6 whole years later, people will swear that Street Fighter 5 is the worst game in the franchise. Because of the terrible reception, Capcom needed to make sure that Street Fighter 6 was as good as it possibly could be when it hits the shelves. They need to go above and beyond the expectation of players if they want to win back the crowd that they lost in the transition from Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter 5. Now, I'm not a fortune teller. There's no way for me to look into the future and see exactly what's going to happen. But I am someone with at least half of a brain, so trust me when I say Capcom is fucking killing it right now. For those of you who've been out of the loop, the Street Fighter 6 beta just concluded this weekend. For 3 short days, players were able to experience the online aspects of Street Fighter 6 in all of its glory. You could create a character, use the lobby system, try the matchmaking, play in tournament, play ranked and casual modes, spinning bird kick around the entire lobby. The skies were the limit, and so were the actual limits that Capcom put on the game. There were a bunch of characters for you to play and things for you to do, and I got to do absolutely none of them. The beta was unfortunately a closed beta, meaning there was only a limited number of spaces available for you to play with. Of course, due to my amazing luck, I didn't get a key at all. I would like to believe my clout would have helped me secure this, but Capcom literally doesn't know I exist because I barely make videos on Capcom games, and I'm not American, so I can't sign up to their program. However, this is the Gekkosquirrel channel, so of course I'm gonna still find a way to talk about things that I've never done before because I'm just slick like that. Also, any gameplay footage you're seeing is from these people. Go check them out. Link in the description. Besides, over the course of the weekend, it was basically all I could see. With Street Fighter 6 hype in full effect and everybody with a key streaming the shit out of the game, I was able to collect more than enough data I needed about the game to form some opinions about it, even if I've never actually touched the damn thing. In all seriousness, though, analyzing the game from an outside perspective is getting me really hyped. As someone who enjoys playing fighting games competitively and has a love for the mind games and the mental side of the genre, seeing the game in action is really getting me excited for the future, and I genuinely believe this could lead to a fighting game revolution. This game could usher in a new age for both competitors and casuals alike, and it seems like they're actually making the casual to competitor pipeline more streamlined, visible, and accessible, which I am 100% down for. But this couldn't have come about if it wasn't for the state that we found ourselves in right now. For those of you who are unaware, currently fighting games are in a really good position. In fact, you could say that we're in a renaissance era of sort. Fighting games are in a better place right now than they basically ever were. While knowing exactly how popular fighting games were back in the 90s isn't exactly feasible for me to figure out, the biggest games in the genre are becoming staggering. Fighting game events are being watched by hundreds of thousands of people. The community is flourishing with events going on basically every goddamn day, and the mass adoption of rollback netcode means that playing with people around the world has quickly gone from a pipe dream to the norm. This genre as a whole has a wide range of games, from your AAA and AA blockbusters pushing the envelope on graphics and design, to your more experimental indie games which focus on crazy system mechanics and attempting to redefine the genre as we know it. Plus, thanks to community efforts, old games that were practically unplayable without the original hardware, or a shitty port, are now more than easily accessible and playable online, meaning you have a wide array of choices on what games you want to play when jumping into the genre. And with this new age of fighting games comes a nice change from the development teams too. While most of the development teams for these games used to hide in the shadows, being silent about the changes that they were making to their games and simply putting them out with no word or explanation, modern fighting game devs are taking more time to interact with their communities, using polls and forums to see what the players want, and explaining their decisions behind balance changes while giving a nice amount of insight into the team's workings. With the newer games absolutely killing it in the marketing appeal and graphics in the genre, indie developers making you question what the hell can't be classed as a fighting game at this point, and passionate community members putting their old favorite games into the spotlight, it's never really been a better time to try and get into fighting games as a whole. And not to mention the content outside of the game on platforms like Twitch and YouTube has increased in quality rapidly over the years, so even just casual observers can find ways to enjoy these games without having to become the best of the best. It's literally never been a better time to get into fighting games. But there has been some concern from some community members about the AAA section of the fighting games. Some members of the community aren't happy with the newest releases of fighting games, feeling that newer titles are dumbed down and easier to previous ones. This is most easily seen with the reception to Guilty Gear Strive, a game in which some Guilty Gear Xrd players said wasn't real Guilty Gear, and were fully delighted when they could finally not play the game that they never had to play from the start. And while I don't think that this is a good way about going around the criticism, I understand their point. Developers want their games to appeal to as many people as possible, but also want to keep the systems fun and dynamic. And depending on who you are, there's a line that might be crossed where you think these systems become too easy and simple. There is the flip, however, where some people look at older games and think that the systems are too complex and bullshit. As a developer, you need to find the fine line, which adds the right amount of complexity without going over the line for too many players. Depending on who you are and what game you want to make, this line is actually quite easily maneuverable, as different games appeal to different people. So where's the line for me? Well, personally, I think Street Fighter 6 has found exactly where I want that line and put a pin in it. Every Street Fighter game brings something new to the table in terms of mechanics. Street Fighter 2 implemented a buffer system that makes special moves easier to execute, along with accidentally inventing the most popular concept in fighting games. Street Fighter 3 added EX moves and parries, so players were rewarded for keeping up the pressure and calling out the opponent's bullshit, as well as allowing players to dash forward and backwards to change the amount of space that they can control. Street Fighter 4 had focus attacks, which were an armored move that would leave the opponent in a crumple state when it connects, which can also be cancelled into a dash for half of your super gauge, allowing for a Roman cancel-like system where you can cancel any attack safely. And Street Fighter 5 added the V-Trigger and V-Skill system, which expanded characters' arsenals and allowed for crazy comebacks and absolute bullshit across the cast. We don't talk about Street Fighter 1. With every Street Fighter game, Capcom has drastically altered the universal mechanics of the game, which causes a completely different game feel between every Street Fighter. Street Fighter 5 plays differently from Street Fighter 4, which is a stark departure from Street Fighter 3, which was a drastic evolution from Street Fighter 2, which was a massive upgrade from Street Fighter 1. And this isn't even bringing up the Alpha and Zero series of these games, or any of the other spin-off Street Fighters, all with their own unique mechanics and functions in the game. So when making Street Fighter 6, Capcom knew that they'd have to find a new gimmick to set it apart from the other games, but still have it be distinctly Street Fighter. Their solution? Just do everything they've already done, but do it all at the same time this time. Street Fighter 6's unique system mechanic is known as the drive gauge. The drive gauge is split into 6 different segments. Blocking attacks, getting whiff punished and counter hit, and taking damage from a super will deplete the drive gauge by a small to large amount, depending on which one of the things happens. When the drive gauge is empty, you enter a state known as burnout. When in burnout, you take chip damage from blocking normals and cannot access any of the options from the drive gauge. And you're not going to want to go into a burnout because there is a bunch of things you can do that is attached to this gauge. Drive parry, drive rush, drive impact, drive reversal, and the infamous maximum overdrive! Having all of these options available to you from the start of the match allows players to be able to access the core complexity of the game from the get-go. Most fighting games have the complex options in the game tied to their super meter, which starts at 0 and builds up throughout the game. So as the round goes on, the games get more complex. Street Fighter 6 says fuck that and starts you with everything apart from your super, so you can just get into it. The challenge then becomes, how do you use the meter you have, and how do you gain it back when you're depleting it? It becomes how you manage your meter while keeping yourself in the game. All of the options the players have weave into each other, and if you run out of bar, you're punished heavily by being put in that burnout state, so you can't use any of the options from the drive gauge, and you take chip damage, and you can be stunned if your drive impacted in the corner. It's too early to say how well these systems will work, but seeing people play with them in the beta, it all looks like it works really well together. And of course, some people have complaints about certain options, but considering that the beta was 3 days long and people already figured out how to deal with people spamming it in such a short amount of time, I'm sure we'll be fine. The characters also add a bunch of things to the table. This is easily the most apparent when you look at returning characters, the new things that they've been added to them. Chun-Li? Yeah, dude, she's a stance character now. Ryu? Yeah, he has a new move that he can use in block strings, and he has a buff that empowers his fireballs and that new attack. Ken? Ken has his crazy kicks back! Each character has something completely new and unique that they add to the table, which makes them all stand out and makes them all look fun as hell. I want to play most of the cast that was in the beta, which is always a good sign when something isn't even out yet. And we still have more new characters who all have crazy gimmicks. Jamie has the drunken master stuff, Luke has timing-based special attack, and Kimberly is the best iteration of the ninja archetype I've ever seen. Even the smaller stuff looks really cool. The instant rematch, just getting you back into the game like that, makes this shit look like crack, bro. You just press the button and you're instantly back in the loop. This is going to be an amazing way to just keep players in the loop and get them hooked. Training mode is extremely fleshed out with advanced details on frame data for players to really dissect the game and see literally everything they could ever want. And there's more features in it that we didn't even get the chance to try out in the beta. Everything on the gameplay front is shaping out to be an excellent experience that I'm very, very excited to get my grubby hands on. And that's not even brushing up on the UX of the game so far. Oh my god. Now, there is a chance that we have to take some of these things with a grain of salt, as there is a chance that come launch, these systems won't work as well as they were functioning in the closed beta test, with the amount of people trying to enter the servers. It may be that Capcom put that limit on the amount of people that could play, because they knew that that was the hard cap of the servers. However, Capcom managed to take the idea of the Guilty Gear Strive lobbies and just make them work. You just sit down in a cabinet and the game just plays. It just works. It just works. It literally just works. I cannot stress enough how good this is. I have been suffering with this lobby system for like a year and a half at this point. What do you mean the Capcom version just works? The character customization is also really cool. However, it has led to some absolute monstrosities walking around. I'm going to be swimming in a school of reject Saturday morning cartoon villains. This is going to be terrible. There's also a shop where you can use your in-game currency to buy cosmetics for your character. There's two different types of currency, which fills me with a level of existential dread I can't fully write down into words, but there's at least some good news about it, kinda. When you compete in tournaments, normally the prize pool is just the in-game currency that you can't buy, that you have to earn, but the top item is a unique cosmetic item that I'm pretty sure you can't buy in the shop. This is fucking genius. It's an incentive for people to play in the tournament mode at all. And it's a way to show your massive skill off to people with how good you are at this game. Honestly, I want those fucking devil wings. I don't even know what they look like. I didn't see any streamer in the actual, closed beta test get the devil wings, but just the sound of them is really fucking sick. When the game does come out, I'm absolutely going to grind tournaments until I get those devil wings. I'm gonna make a video out of it. Make sure you sub so you can see it when that comes out. I do have to say though, the premium currency is still worrying me a bit. Having everything be so good, but then just having that one thing that's not quite right, it makes it just stick out even more. And I know these kind of things are a slippery slope. I'm sure people are going to say, oh, well, you never have to buy anything if you don't want it. You can just use the free currency. But if the game is going to cost full price on release, having you pay more for an in-game item is a bit scummy, don't you think? Like, I paid for the full game. Let me unlock the funny hat for my avatar. If they have a fox mask behind a microtransaction, I am going to be pissed. So it seems like Capcom has taken most of my worries and thrown them into the trash can with the closed beta. So let's see what crazy new ideas we can come up with for the game that seems to be breaking the mold so much. Well, how about events? Have a Halloween event where you group up with your friends to take down a boss version of Akuma that's absolutely cracked and cheats his way to victory. What about a Christmas event where you have a unique extreme mode where you just have to be as friendly as possible with your opponent? You can throw gifts at each other and have a taunt competition. I know you already have a car destruction mode because you've shown it it in a trailer. Have a leaderboard for that shit so you can compete with your friends for a high score. Have a massive special tournament once a month for an extremely extra in-game item, like an aura or angel wings that glow, or something like that for people to grind for. Have it be like a Team Fortress 2 unusual that you have to earn. Hell, you could steal a page from Nintendo's book and do like a Splatoon Splatfest, where players choose a team and there's a specific queue that you can play in to fight players of the opposing team in order to get points, and the team with the most points at the end gets a special prize. Fuck it, dude, just do like rank seasons and give me a special reward for reaching a high rank. Give me emotes for completing specific achievements. Give me an in-game ARG for a new character that's coming out. Or just whatever. Just please, Capcom, whatever you do, don't make it a fucking battle pass and loot boxes. Once again, very special thanks to Super, Brudikai, Lady Dantalon, Monarch, Mystery, Procticon, Daniel Wiederich, Rabbit Mask, Tom Tanks, Edit and Lottery, Smeech, Straw Fox, Otaku Joseph, and Maki Yamazaki for being Tier 2 patrons.